Soft and cute Princess 6, knows how to farm and act coquettishly. Emperor. My little 6 is stronger than that bunch of old scholars. At a young age, I have already fed the people of the whole country. Empress. My little 6 is beautiful and beautiful. Looking around, those noble women are not enough to look at. Prince Gao Leng. I want to marry my crush, let's see if the sword in his hand agrees. Keywords of the novel. Doctor of Agriculture in Ancient Greenhouse Farming. No pop-ups. Doctor of Agriculture in Ancient Greenhouse Farming Complete Collection Download. Doctor of Agriculture in the latest chapter of Ancient Greenhouse Farming reading. Chapter 1. March Agricultural Busy Day. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. March Agricultural Busy Day. Jinxiu Street is a bustling scene, with people coming and going on the street. All shop signs are in gilded font, and the counters inside are decorated with gorgeous decorations. At the end of the street is the south gate of the palace, where 2 white horses pull a carriage. The light blue tassels hanging from the roof sway in the wind and come out unobstructed. The little girl in the carriage, dressed in green palace clothes, chattered incessantly, "Princess, today the Empress Dowager reminds you not to go out after taking a nap. Don't go out. Why are you still running to the royal farm? Good spring in March, it's the busy farming season. The sky has started to heat up, and Xia Yunjin's fan in her hand is slowly fanning. She has been wearing this non-existent Xia dynasty for 8 years. I have 1 more year to go." In ancient times, when a girl passed the 15th year and received the hairpin ceremony, she should discuss marriage. If you don't run to the farm, where will you be at the mercy of your mother? The day after tomorrow, it's a good time for spring outings in the flower dynasty. My mother definitely wants someone to make clothes for her. Who is wearing a luo skirt and running up the mountain? It's better to go to the fields and pick up talent than to compete with talented women and scholars with that kind of thought. I've been busy with spring plowing lately, and the rice in the experimental field has already sprouted, so I'm going to transplant it soon. If she's not busy anymore, she won't be able to afford to be laughed at by Mr. Cheng from the Academy of Agricultural Sciences. The little girl didn't keep anyone and didn't complete the queen's orders. She pouted in a low mood and said, "Just try on the clothes. Don't worry, if Queen Mother blames you, I'll make the decision for you." She comforted and patted her hand. "Excellent is good for everything, but I'm a bit afraid of being a mother or an adult." The princess doesn't like to attend those events, but there are always people gossiping behind her back. It is said that the princess was picked up by the Empress, and she likes to run into the fields, not to mention playing with the grain that the lowly farmers consider precious. Once, when the princess heard it, she threw a big whip directly at her and said, "Are you eating shit every day?" Even if the princess is right, in reason, she has gained a reputation for being unruly. Fortunately, the emperor and empress dote on her, and parents are the ones who know their children the best. The emperor said, "My little 6 is stronger than that bunch of old scholars. At a young age, I have already fed the people of the whole country." The empress said, "My little 6 is beautiful and beautiful." Looking around, those noble women are not enough to look at. The fact is indeed so, but the princess doesn't like to show off, rarely attends banquets, and few people know that such a remarkable princess exists. Excellent, take care of your own princess. The princess is about to reach her hairpin. How will she choose a husband then? Watching the princess sigh heavily, sigh. The fan was put down and she looked at her with a smile. "Why are you still sighing? Talking too much is annoying." She doesn't want to put pressure on the princess. Innocent big eyes blinked and said, "It's okay, it's okay." She reached out to pinch her baby fat and said, "My goodness, little housekeeper. Don't worry, be happy. There must be a way to get to the mountain by car. Don't worry, let's go pick strawberries later." The little girl's eyes lit up and her head nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. Ha ha ha. I knew she was interested in food. I vaguely touched the grain-sized pattern on my wrist, which was a high-end laboratory that I traveled with her. Inside, there are grain reserves from the Research Institute, and in one of the rooms, there are precision weapons for responding to emergencies, the highest-end lipstick pistols, rifles, and sniper rifles. After graduating with a PhD, she went directly to the National Advanced Research Center, which was everyone's hard work. Unexpectedly, she fell inside and broke the jade necklace her grandmother gave her. She was then reborn into the beloved sixth princess of the Xia dynasty. Poor Princess Six was pushed into the water and drowned at a young age. She crossed over and had no childhood memories of the little princess. Fortunately, her original identity was the heart and soul of the Empress. Whether it was said that her daughter had a broken brain or suffered from amnesia, she still favored her as always. Even the emperor. Between wandering in the sky, the carriage had already traveled 10 miles to the royal farm. The car stopped, and Xia Yunjin put on her hat and said, "Let's go." Excellent jumped off the carriage, and before he could bring the stool on the side of the carriage, he saw the princess jump off. "Princess, how many times have you said it? You can't dance, you should be elegant, you should be dignified." Before she could finish speaking, someone stuffed a strawberry into her mouth. She had to eat it first. "Yunjin, you're here. Look at these big strawberries." A white-bearded old man in his prime, dressed in a washed gray and dark green official uniform. There was still some mud on top, with straps tied to his shoulders and a basket of strawberries in his hand, showing it to Xia Yunjin. Sweet," said the person who gave face, lifting his hand and putting one into his mouth. "Dean Lu, this is a princess, you can't call her by her name," said the excellent person vaguely while eating. Lu Kang picked up another one and put it into the girl's mouth, unable to stop eating it. Xia Yunjin looked at the old mischievous child with a smile on her face. Fortunately, she was covered in a hat, and no one knew her expression. "Let's go, counting the days, the seedlings are probably already 10 centimeters long. If possible, we can try planting them in the farm first." After speaking, take a step into the gate of the farm. Dean Lu was excited and said, "Sure, we can call the students to weed in the fields when the time comes." In order not to appear too demonic, she traveled back to understand the language of this dynasty and leaned towards agriculture. As she grew older, she read books about crops and learned about local climates from the crown prince. At the age of 10, he studied agriculture with Dean Lu of the Academy of Agricultural Sciences in front of him. At first, the courtiers looked up to this noble princess with respect on their faces, their noses pointing upwards, and they didn't take her seriously. Who would believe that a princess would really roll up her sleeves to work? Xia Yunjin knew that her small troubles could not delay others' research, so she specifically asked her father to build a greenhouse. The blueprint was drawn according to the greenhouse in the Modern Research Institute, with a heating channel inside the wall and a large heater inside in winter. Inside are rows of wooden frames filled with soil, and on one side is hydroponic cultivation. Strange things blinded the eyes of academicians, even Dean Lu had to sneak in a few times a day to keep an eye on them. As Xia Yunjin slowly exposes herself, in the words of academician Ching roast behind his back, "What a special girl. This girl is really a goddamn genius." For years have passed, and Xia Yunjin has enriched the diet of the people of the Xia dynasty, producing more sweet potatoes and potatoes. Watermelon, cantaloupe, and various fruits frequently appear. People fear fame and pigs fear strength. Xia Yunjin owes all her credit to the old academicians. As a girl, she should keep a low profile. Otherwise, how can she be treated as a monster? Only a few people know about her feat in the greenhouse. The seedlings in the divided paddy field can now be transplanted. Take off the canopy and ask, "Uncle Lu, can we free up 2 acres of paddy field tomorrow?" Speaking of business, Lu Kang handed the strawberry frame to the excellent girl and pointed to the seedling field. "Is this what it's like to make such a wet field?" Excellent and cheerful, holding the strawberry frame, one by one feeding it into his mouth. Woo woo woo. Naming Fei Yi, original name. Tuan Chong Princess busy farming. A good article delayed by its name, let's look forward to it together. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Laughter in the Countryside. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Laughter in the Countryside. Pull out a seedling and check the growth of its roots and stems. Yes, Uncle Lou, you participated in the seedling cultivation throughout the process. You should be clear about how to handle the field, he said. I know. Tomorrow, all the staff will pull out the grass and mix the fields. After the Chinese New Year, everyone was completely idle and happened to be exercising their muscles and bones. Insert the seedlings back and say, excuse me, I'll come back the day after tomorrow. The day after tomorrow. Girl, why don't you join in the fun during the flower festival and come to this farmland to play with the mud? I want to preach and preach for the Empress Dowager. With a frown, time waits for no one. The seedlings are already mature and will age before they are buried in the soil. Okay, I'll notify all the students to come and plant it, complete it earlier, and not delay your young people's play. Stroking her mustache, she smiled at the young woman who had grown up under the noses of the old men. Pooh, it's a princess. Excellent came over with a handkerchief to wipe Xia Yunjin's hands and said, Princess, it's almost time. We should go back to the palace now. Don't worry, go to the hillside and pick 2 strawberries. Block the mother's mouth and listen less to her verbosity. I'll go call a few students to come and help. The old man strode out. The Academy of Agricultural Sciences has recruited more than 20 intelligent young men, no, students. They are all elected agricultural leaders from various regions, and the older generation of academicians are taken over by these young talents. There is no need to participate in the imperial examination. The Academy of Agricultural Sciences has always been the aspiration of the people. As long as one can grow crops, be familiar with grain habits, love people's livelihood, and have a high level of innovation, it is even more precious here. The royal farm must have a pure family background. This is the only one that has been sifted out. Many people who want to live in troubled waters and wait for death, just to make up for the number. Strawberries were only produced by Xia Yunjin last year. They were planted in 2 plots on the small hillside, one with ordinary red strawberries and the other with pink creamy strawberries. This is a seed taken from the laboratory. Who dares to touch the princess's things except for the dean? No, there's also an old man named Cheng. Girl, I heard that the seedlings you cultivate will be planted the day after tomorrow. Speaking of Chow Chow, when he arrived, old man Cheng followed Dean Lu with a loud voice, and behind him were 3 or 5 young people. At the Academy of Agricultural Sciences, they were accustomed to the presence of this beautiful mud-legged princess and did not feel uncomfortable. The young people, on the other hand, arched their hands and bent down in a formal manner. See princess. Xia Yunjin placed the luo basket on the ground and said, no gift. After the etiquette, he looked at academician Cheng, who had a bad temper, and said, yes. Everyone came over and started picking strawberries with all their hands and feet. When they saw the red and delightful fruits in the field, they couldn't help but swallow their saliva. But she restrained herself from the urge to eat and put the fruit in the basket. The princess was always generous and wouldn't forget them for any new products. She would always get them. No matter what the hell it is, during the flower festival, I always like to jump around in the fields. Pick the largest one and give it to your mouth. It's so sweet. Bring a few for your mother. Law later. Unscrupulous words came, and the excellent glared at him angrily. You're not allowed to speak out loud in front of the princess. He was also angry that he had eaten the largest strawberry, which the Empress had not tasted yet. Yo ho little girl, you're the only one here. The princess doesn't even have your cow wall. Old Cheng picked another big strawberry and bit it with a snap. How can I compare myself to a princess? Excellent was completely enraged, and a punch hit his big belly. Let you talk nonsense. Stinky girl, I haven't seen any strength in a few days. Rubbing her stomach, she picked up a small mud ball on the ground and threw it at her feet. just to scare the little girl. Excellent looked at the hem of the skirt with mud on it and said, "I just changed clothes today." Old Cheng saw that the situation was not right, so he quickly threw his legs and left Excellent, and unwilling to be outdone, he picked up mud balls and chased after Old Cheng, throwing mud balls at him. "Ha ha ha, Master Cheng, run faster. Come on, Mother Tiger." The farce of two people chasing each other often takes place in the farmland, and studying agriculture and plants every day is dull and boring, which has become a pleasure for young talents. Fan the wind and ignite the fire behind every time. Watching everyone in the yard beaming with happy smiles, that's why Xia Yunjin likes to stay here. She can laugh freely if she wants to burst into laughter. Excellent Old Man Cheng was covered in mud, but he didn't do well either, just like himself. The strawberries were almost harvested, and the students loaded the baskets onto the carriage. The excellent person hurriedly got on the carriage, feeling embarrassed and dirty. She didn't even have the face to be with the princess. Academician Lu, everyone works hard to ripen the strawberries. Tomorrow, everyone will work very hard. Pick 1 or 2 baskets to reward the students. Of course, you can also bring some back to give your family a try. Xia Yunjin turned around and ordered before getting on the carriage. Lu Kong and Old Cheng nodded happily, "Thank you very much, Princess." Turn around and enter the carriage, take off the curtain cap and place it on the second shelf of the carriage. Seeing the little girl's gloomy face, she couldn't help but laugh out loud. Don't always explode like a firecracker, that won't make you so embarrassed every time. Who would say that Old Man Cheng hates it? It's annoying to watch it. Mouth pouting to express dissatisfaction. Excellent is so cute, and it is her who values the rules. When she comes to the Academy of Agricultural Sciences, she is also the one who enjoys playing the most. A lively and cheerful laughter is what a little girl should look like at her age. The carriage leads directly to the harem and stops at the entrance of the Jinyuan Hall. The door opened and dozens of servant girls came out. The head girl was just like the one on the carriage. Yes, they are twin sisters. The Queen's mother's family was born to a servant family in the British government. The two maids watched the celebration and the grandmother waved her hand and sent her to the palace. She grew up with the 6th princess from a young age. Although everyone couldn't tell who the older sister was and who the younger sister was. Smart as the 6th princess, she can distinguish people thoroughly and never calls them wrong once. See Princess. Xia Yunjin, who had already jumped off the carriage, turned around and raised her hand, "No gift." The mud girl in the car lifted the curtain and looked at the sister who came out. "Advantages, come over and help me move the fruit together," she said. Advantages frowned and without hesitation, he patted her head and said, "No big or small." The names of the 2 little girls were both given by Xia Yunjin. At that time, they laughed at the Empress Dowager and the Crown Prince's brother. The maids behind were accustomed to playing around and ordered to come and work together to lay down the baskets. Exhausted, pounding my shoulders as I entered, I still have to find my mother later, feeling tired. Returning to the room, taking a shower and changing clothes, packing up and coming out, I heard the sound of paying respects outside. See Empress Dowager, Empress Qiansui Qiansui Qiansui. Xia Yunjin came out of the main hall, and the Empress's head was steady, dragging her embroidered phoenix totem and bright yellow skirt hem in. The mother, who is in her 30s, takes excellent care of herself. Her eyebrows are delicate and her skin is not pink but white. Her cherry lips should be plump but red. Seeing the tired expression on her daughter's face, she couldn't even scold her, but there's more to say. Pulling her obedient daughter, "Gina, I know you should also score points while playing with the mulberry trees. The day after tomorrow, during the flower festival, I asked you to come to my mother's place in the afternoon to pick clothes. You should." I can't keep listening anymore, so I quickly hugged my dear Queen Mother and said, "Queen Mother, I'm still young. What kind of flower festival is not for us noble people to play with? We should reflect on ourselves, read well, and become excellent ourselves." End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Unreliable Uncle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Unreliable Uncle. Empress couldn't help but lightly slap the arm of her daughter in her arms, pretending to be angry and saying, "You have a lot of wisdom. You will be married in a year. If you haven't found your husband, be careful if your father takes you for marriage." "No, father loves me so much." Xia Yunjin is still confident in marriage matters. She has mastered the most advanced agriculture in Mulberry, and in recent years, she has improved the food and clothing of the people. In terms of agriculture, the Xia far surpasses the three kingdoms. If we really want to fight, the most essential thing is food and grass. This is the reality of knowledge changing destiny. No monarch would be dizzy and give away such an important talent. The wise Empress knew that her precious children were capable, so she spoke of scaring her. Advantages: quickly bring the strawberries in and give them to the mother to taste. The girl who was picking up strawberries and dividing them outside the door said. She pulled her mother over to the window and sat down on the tatami mat, which she had specially hired a craftsman to make. In modern times, she enjoys lying on the sofa chasing dramas and watching short videos. Suddenly, in ancient times, there were only tables and chairs, which was inconvenient. The person sat down, and the maid outside came in to pour tea, placed it in front of the two, and bent her knees to withdraw. Empress raised her glass and took a light sip, then put down her tea cup. There are millions of good men in the capital. Our son needs to keep his eyes open and look for them carefully. If we can't pass these few tests, then the man will also be in trouble. With a helpless smile, mother said, "I'm still young, why did she mention this again?" The advantage is carrying washed strawberries with water droplets, and the red strawberries come in. I was about to preach a few words to my daughter, but I was attracted by the red fruit in front of me. What new fruit is this? It looks very festive. Celebration. Advantages. Put the fruit on the small table and then step back to the side. After picking up one and feeding it to the mother, taste it and make sure you can't stop eating. Empress took a bite from her daughter's hand, and the juice filled her entire mouth, refreshing and sweet. Taking the whole fruit in one gulp, not bad. I saw 2 big baskets in your yard. I'll bring some to your father and cheer later. Oh, by the way, send another basket to your grandfather and uncles. Listen to you. This is also her plan. The queen ate the sweet fruits and then satisfactorily instructed the maid to drive back to the palace with the big end of a strawberry box. After seeing off their mother and leaving, the girls under the osmanthus tree were still sorting strawberries and going over to share them together. Advantages: give this box to your father. If your uncle is present, ask him to wait at the door when he leaves the palace. Excellent, please send this box to the crown prince. Advantages: excellent knee bending, yes. Hold the boxes and go out separately. The maids in the courtyard were all trained by the mother's family. With such a shrewd ruler of the harem, she had no worries and only focused on the Academy of Agricultural Sciences. Qingqian Hall, a young and promising emperor, dressed in a bright yellow dragon robe, stood solemnly in front of the mountain and river map. Do you still have no idea about the Yanxi Reservoir, my dear friends? The 2 rows of high-ranking officials sitting vertically below looked at each other with eyes, and no one wanted to be such a prominent figure. You're right. If the emperor is happy, just give him a few compliments. If he's not right, he'll have good fruit to eat. Accompanying a ruler is like accompanying a tiger, no one can speak without losing their composure. The prime minister sitting at the front bowed his hand in the middle and said, "Your Majesty, building a reservoir requires money and people. Currently, the border has just passed the cold winter, and the northern country has already run out of birds and is starting to stir up trouble. This matter needs more consideration." Emperor Xia impatiently sat down and said, "The rainy season is coming soon. You have also seen the annual disasters in Yanxi, with countless deaths and injuries. It is imperative to build a water reservoir. The Minister of Revenue said, "How much silver is left in the treasury?" Fang Lian Shangshu stood up and saluted politely, "Your Majesty, there have been many major wars and minor conflicts in recent years. Fortunately, the tax revenue is good, and building a reservoir is not a problem." Prime Minister Shen in front rolled his eyes and said, "Damn Lao Yang, why didn't he report to him about the abundance of silver?" The emperor smiled knowingly, and the good tax revenue was attributed to his own daughter. If it weren't for her research on those strange yet refreshing fruits, allowing the people to plant huge profits and making wealthy merchants wealthy, there would have been no one who paid taxes seriously. The reservoir can be built, but he is too lazy to pursue his uncle's fault. Tomorrow morning, let's put the construction of the reservoir on the agenda and end the meeting. Advantage came over holding a strawberry box and happened to encounter various ministers coming out. Seeing the red fruit in the little girl's arms, she was eager to make a move but lacked the courage. "Isn't this for seeking death?" For the emperor, upon seeing the prime minister come out, Mei gave him a curtsy and said, "Good morning, Prime Minister, Princess has instructed you to wait at the palace gate." Prime Minister Shen nodded happily, looking at the red fruit in the girl's arms. He didn't understand anything else. The princess had something rare to bring back. Today, the emperor didn't scold me for being careless. He stroked my little beard and walked forward with a beautiful mood. The advantage is holding a strawberry and entering the hall, kneeling down and bowing to the person above, "See the emperor, long live the emperor, long live the emperor." Flat. The hand reading the memorial paused and looked at the red fruit in her hand. "What did Xiao Lu ask you to bring over?" The eunuch-in-chief came down to take the box from the maid's hand. "Your Majesty, this is the strawberry that the princess brought back from the Academy of Agricultural Sciences." "Let me give you a try," said the orderly. Hands crossed on her lower abdomen. The eunuch inserted a silver needle into the fruit, took it out, and the color was normal. He wiped it with the emperor's special handkerchief before handing it to the emperor. After taking the strawberry, the emperor gave it to his mouth and took a bite. The sweet juice flowed back into his mouth and he said, "Not bad, Xiao Lu has a heart. Every time he cultivates a new product, he always thinks of me, the emperor." The Empress was the first to eat. "Oh no, listen to the excellent. They're picking and eating in the field, let's go back. I saw you talking to the Prime Minister just now, so I think he must have the Prime Minister take him back." Speaking of this, he felt a bit uncomfortable. His wife and daughter always think about their family's delicious food. The advantage bent down and replied, "Yes." Exit the main hall and quickly report the advantages to the princess. The Prime Minister is still waiting at the palace gate. Seeing the anxious steps of the advantage, she knew that her uncle was there. "Peony in red rose, lift the basket onto the carriage, let's go to the palace gate." Advantages. Hold the door and pant, waiting for the princess to come out. Outside the palace, Shen Chongyu whistled and walked around in circles. Seeing the blue carriage come out, tidy up your attire. Waiting for my niece to get off the car, I respectfully bowed and said, "See Princess 6. Uncle, there's no need to be too polite." He picked him up, bent his knees and bowed to his younger brother, smiling as he looked at his elder brother who treated his mother the best and loved her the most since childhood. "Hey," Shen Chongyu responded happily. "Who doesn't like a beautiful and capable niece?" "Uncle, this is the strawberry I brought back today. Take it back to my grandparents and grandmother to taste, as well as my second uncle, cousin, and sisters," he said, waiting for the peonies and advantages to move down the luo frame. Shen Chongyu picked up one and started eating it. Just as the meeting came up, he saw the talented girl holding it and giving it to the emperor, making him crave it. "No problem, everyone has a share," he said, taking another one and stuffing it into his mouth. Xia Yunjin sighed helplessly, she didn't know what virtue her uncle had. "I'm really worried that he might just show it off on the way." End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Unfulfilled Flower Festival. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Unfulfilled flower festival. Watching my uncle's carriage leave so far, I turned around and got into my own carriage back to the palace. Under the phoenix tree in the eastern palace, a gentle and elegant young man sat upright in front of a stone table reading a book, habitually reaching out to take a fruit entrance. The sour and sweet juice touches the nerves, and the tempting peach blossom eyes furrow slightly. Looking away from the book, looking at the red fruits in my hand, what new variety is this cultivated by my sister? The book was placed back on the table, curiously looking at the fruits on the plate, and looking up at Mu Chuan. The guards approached and clasped their fists. Your Highness, this is the strawberry that Princess Six picked outside the city in the afternoon. Xia Yinchi smiled at the corner of his mouth, and the little girl was the least princess-like among all princesses, enjoying playing with rare things in the fields. But every new variety born benefits people's livelihoods. He doesn't like things with a hint of sourness, but he needs to eat more of what his sister gave him. Jinyuan Hall. After dinner, Xia Yunjin changed into a neat short combat outfit and gestured with a sword in the yard. Excellent, gnawing on an apple and touching his stomach, came over to take his sister's arm and said, Sister, why do you think princesses like to be so creative? The Advantage shook her head helplessly, while the younger sister always spoke shamelessly. If she dared to comment on the master like this, she might not want to live anymore. Don't make reckless decisions about your master, she said, nodding her head. Got it. I rolled my eyes at my sister secretly. In the evening, Xia Yunjin entered the laboratory and received all the species in the experimental field into the warehouse. In order to see the results faster, the environment in the field is maintained by the most advanced system, and the maturity cycle of plants is greatly shortened. No matter what seeds are planted, they can mature in just 3 days. Inside is the seed base she nurtures. After finishing collecting things, I was so tired that I fell asleep right after coming out. In the morning, when the concubines finished paying their respects to their mother, they went to accompany her for breakfast. While eating, the emperor who had finished morning court outside walked in. Mother and daughter stood up and bowed to the emperor. Greetings to the emperor, Father Emperor. Free of charge. Emperor Xia happily lifted his wife and children. Helping his wife back onto the stool, he looked at her beautiful daughter and said, I heard you're not going to have fun tomorrow and you're going to the imperial estate to pick up some. Returning to my father, yes. Who is chewing on my father's tongue? Thinking left and right, it should be Academician Lu. It must be because his father entrusted him with something, using it as an excuse to evade. The Empress glared at her daughter in anger and said, Don't worry about her, she just likes to play with those things. Pearl doesn't need to be too serious, let Jiner like it. He was overjoyed, and what Jinya picked up were all real things. Smiling and looking at my father, I like his understanding and rationality. After having breakfast, Empress Shin caught her daughter and refused to let her go. Today, she will try on clothes no matter what. The emperor didn't stay much either, so he drank a cup of morning tea and went back to continue reading the book. The royal farm was bustling with work, and according to the princess's request, the big guy cleaned up the fields and poured water to turn them into moist mud and water fields. Xia Yunjin spent a whole day tinkering around with her mother and had no time to go out of the palace to see how the big guy was doing. On the second day, get up early to wash up. The excellent advantage is to get up early to prepare breakfast and prepare for transportation. The advantage is to pack the rest in a food box. It will be very tiring all day today, filling the big guy's stomach, he said, casually eating a few steamed buns. Excellent. Passing by the Jinxiu pavilion later, please go down and instruct your fourth cousin to prepare lunch and dinner for over 30 people today. Today is the flower festival, and I wonder if my fourth cousin is too busy to win. Forget it, go find the Empress Dowager and have the imperial kitchen prepare for the big guy, and deliver it to the royal farm on time. Yes. The two maids were ordered and quickly walked to get things done. Peony came over with a curtain hat and said, the princess must take care of herself. There are many people on the street today, so be careful not to bump into the princess. Still the peony is careful. Smiling, he took over the curtain hat strap. Being praised has become the norm, and the peonies bend their knees without arrogance or impatience, and go to the table to pack and eat together with their strengths. After reporting to the Empress, Xia Yunjin climbed onto the carriage, carrying a food box with him. "Dear peony, keep your home obediently," the excellent mischievous teased the little girl behind the carriage. The peony had a mature heart and didn't take the childish tricks of the ghosts on the car seriously. They smiled and waved at them. The Advantage pulled the younger sister's outstretched body back and said, "Fuck you, Miss Peony is not as childish as you are." Xia Yunjin smiled at the corners of her mouth with a curtain hat, and the maids around her were all very interesting. First-class maids were excellent, innocent, and lively, with qualities that were calm and mature like adults. Second-class maids such as peonies, camellia, grapes, and roses all have good character. On the way out of the palace, I met many princesses and princesses who went out together, with different purposes. Some had friends gathering, while others gathered for leisure. Everyone was sitting in the carriage, not wanting to know each other, and Xia Yunjin was too lazy to lift the curtain to say hello. The street is very crowded, and at a glance, it's full of heads. The carriage turtle moved quickly, and Xia Yunjin really wanted to scold her. What's the point of breaking the knot and delaying things on the outdoor balcony of the Jinxiu Pavilion? Two girls dressed in fancy clothes saw the blue carriage and said, "Sister, look, the princess has come out." After speaking, he pulled her downstairs and ran towards the carriage. Excellent and bored, lying on the window looking at the heads of the people, saw the second and fourth daughters of the Marquis's mansion and said, "Princess, your second and fourth cousins have come." "There's no rule, that's the second and fourth girls in the Marquis's mansion," she said, giving her a surprise stir-fried chestnut. "Got it." I pursed my lips in grievance, my sister hates it so much. The curtain of the carriage was lifted, and Shen Yushu's small face reached in. "Princess, today is the flower festival, why don't you go hiking with your handsome cousins?" Xia Yunjin lifted the curtain in front of her hat, smiled, and reached out to pull her up. "Fourth cousin, I'm going to the farm today." Unfortunately, the princess missed the opportunity to see handsome men and beautiful women again. Turning around, she also pulled up second sister. After getting on the car, Shen Yusin saluted politely, "See the princess." Smiling, he walked over and helped her up. "Second cousin, there aren't so many rules on the carriage." "Yes." Elegantly stood up and smiled at her cousin, the princess. "Are your two cousins waiting for someone?" he said as he sat down with the two of them. "Yes, wait for your unreliable fifth cousin." Shen Yushu leaned against his second sister's shoulder without any image. With a helpless smile, "I have to wait. My fifth cousin loves to have fun the most. Thank you very much for the strawberries sent by the princess yesterday. Shen Yusin likes to eat this sweet fruit and thanked her for it." I couldn't help but chuckle and say, "It's also a big basket, not far from the Marquis's mansion, otherwise it wouldn't be enough for my uncle to eat on the road." When Shen Yushu talked about uncle, he was very enthusiastic, ignoring that his own daughter was here. He straightened up and began to tug. "That's not true. Uncle always does this. When he asks him to bring us something to eat, we'll only be left with scum when we get home." Pup the excellent and unscrupulous laughed out loud, and even the little cousin was miserable enough. The dignified Shen Yusin smiled and said nothing. She was used to her unreliable father and didn't care about her friend's roast. After joking all the way to the city gate, the two cousins got off the car. Shen Yushu turned around and waved with a smile, "Goodbye princess. Second cousin, goodbye fourth cousin." Smiling, he looked out the window at the two people and said goodbye to them. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. High-quality rice seeds. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. High-quality rice seeds. After leaving the city, she hurried all the way and arrived at the royal farm. It was already time, and she quickly changed into her usual farming clothes. Apart from not knowing how to wear complicated skirts when she was a child, she needed excellent service. She has always liked to wear them herself. Today I'm going to go into the water. She put on backpack pants sewn with sheepskin bags, and her hair was tied up high into a ball head, fixed with a wooden hairpin. She dressed well, excellently, waiting outside dressed neatly. Even if their princess dresses like a peasant girl, she is still the most beautiful. With a smile, she puts on the straw hat in her hand. Let's go and see what Academician Lu has done to the paddy field, he said, rolling up his narrow sleeves and lifting his foot out. All the way to the back of the wheat field, the shimmering farmland, and the pavilion where a group of people were already waiting. Seeing the unique attire, everyone stood up, respectfully clasped their fists and bent down, see the princess. Xia Yunjin gently raised her hand and said, no gift. Everyone straightened up and she looked around, all familiar faces, but didn't see the two deans. I believe the two deans are still stuck in traffic in the city, waiting. Turn around and step on the rice fields to see if the mud fields they tossed around yesterday are qualified. The sheepskin backpack pants are attached to the feet and won't break when exposed to water, but Xia Yunjin felt the soft and rotten mud in the water. She withdrew her feet and said, excellent, keep the rope. The little girl needs to pass the rope on her hand over. The rope serves as a divider, leaving a small path for easy management of seedlings in the future. Leave 4 people behind, and the others will follow the excellent to the greenhouse to pull out seedlings. Remember that the nursery is young and tender, everyone should hold on to the roots and pull them out. Pointing to the wooden box next to them, after pulling them out, put them inside, pack them, and bring them over. Then, divide half of the people to come and plant together. Yes, the young people responded loudly, clasping their fists. A group of people had to listen to her excellence, and the little girl unconsciously raised her lips and waved her big hand, let's all follow me. Xia Yunjin looked at the spirited girl and thought of what it meant to be a fox pretending to be a tiger. Holding one end of the rope, give the advantage, go to the end of the field and walk on the ridge to the left. I'll stop and you'll insert a stick of wood into the field. Okay. Last time, she worked with the princess to make a test field box in the greenhouse, knowing that the princess was going to divide the field into sections. The 2 of them exhausted the rope, and the 1-acre separation line had been marked. The first box of seedlings has arrived, and Xia Yunjin, disregarding any delicate jade fingers, went over and picked up a handful. The first seedling was just inserted into the field, and out came a handful of mud. The 2 young people were stunned. They came to help today. It was the first time they saw such a down-to-earth princess, and they said they would work without hesitation. Not paying attention to their surprised eyes, the work on their hands kept going. You take off your shoes, roll up your sleeves, and like me, plant seedlings empty. Remember to plant the seedlings in hard soil, otherwise the seedlings will float and die from the water in the later management of the paddy field. The 2 young men blushed and took off their shoes. They rolled their sleeves and went to the field, standing on the right side of the princess. They picked up the seedlings from the floating wooden box in the field and began to insert them into the mud with a certain appearance. Xia Yunjin stood up and watched as they started planting rice seedlings. The first one they started was already in place, and she went over to pull it out and put it back into the soil. The water level must reach at least 1 finger. At the first short leaf of the seedlings, she said. The young man nodded to indicate that he understood, and the seedlings behind him were inserted deeper. Insert the seedlings arranged in an orderly manner on the left, gradually mastering the rules. The second box of seedlings delivered by Xia Yunjin went to the beginning of another plot, teaching the 2 or 3 people who came over. There are many people pulling out seedlings, and the seedlings in the greenhouse are quickly pulled out. Several experts have also been taught here, and Xia Yunjin instructed them to teach the later ones. The fields were all filled with people, with 5 or 6 of them planting rice seedlings in each area. She didn't need to gather a person's head and leave the field carrying water pans. The princess asked me and my sister to come. You can rest at the pavilion, she said, pulling off the dividing rope. Okay. The little girl is the most active, let her fiddle around. The two of them pulled a rope over another acre of paddy field, and the twins had a tacit understanding of this. When they reached a certain distance, the two of them coincidentally marked it downwards. Xia Yunjin took off her bulky overalls, washed her hands, and sat in the pavilion to personally brew a pot of floral tea for everyone. When the sun is shining in the sky, it is a scorching time. With many people, the power is great, and even an acre of land can be quickly planted. Just as she was coming out of the pavilion, preparing to call everyone a break, on the other side of the strawberry hill, Academician Lu's loud voice came from, Princess, why didn't you start without my two old bones coming? The excellent person, who came back with a rope stained with soil, turned his head and retorted, I came late, and even yelled at others. Upon hearing these words over there, his feet became faster. Old Cheng was 5 big, silly and rough, with a loud voice. His feet were also faster than those of Dean Lu Kong. Carrying the front of the brocade robe that was obstructing his feet, he ran over to explain, what did you say? When we went out, there was a traffic jam in the city. We passed by a tea house on the street, and our colleagues upstairs warmly greeted us for tea. Refusing was not enough. They called me an old man, cold and aloof. Before she could finish speaking, the little girl raised her hand and stopped her, I don't want to hear you argue. The deans arrived not late, and we also stuck in the city for a while before coming out. Xia Yunjin smiled and went over to interrupt. Today is a special holiday, and what Mr. Cheng said was also reasonable. In front of everyone, we should give the two elders some face. The princess spoke up, and she also took a break from his thoughts, not understanding him. Mr. Cheng gratefully clasped his fists and saluted the princess is magnanimous. Speaking, Dean Lu also came over, and he saw that 1 acre of rice had already been planted in the paddy field. Girl, why is this seedling planted different from what you planted in your experimental field? Xia Yunjin came out of the pavilion and explained to him, this is a seedling that needs to grow. It's the same principle as wheat, it will grow taller and produce rice. When it comes to wheat, he understands. Isn't that the same? It's not easy to draw conclusions. This little girl worked hard to come up with something, just let her go and see the result later. When the people in the fields came ashore to change fields, they were stopped by the advantages and said, everyone, come and rest for a while, drink some water before going down to the fields. Everyone straightened up and kowtowed towards this side, thank you very much, princess. No need to thank you, take a break on a hot day. He instructed the excellent people around him to help pour tea. Old Cheng was also dry-mouthed all the way. He went over and poured himself a bowl, then turned back and said, Miss Jean, does your seedling's growth cycle, like wheat, take until July or August to ripen? Rice doesn't need to be harvested for so long, it can be harvested in early autumn. The growth period is in summer, and the cycle is not as long as wheat. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Escape from Consort Selection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Escape from Consort Selection. After drinking the refreshing floral tea, the young people started planting in the fields again, and even after finishing early, they could catch up with the bustle of the city. Halfway through, the sharp voice of the eunuch came from Strawberry Hill, the crown prince is here. The people holding seedlings in the field didn't know what to do for a moment, so they came up to salute. Still kneeling in the field, everyone doesn't need to come out, continue planting rice seedlings. Xia Yunjin saw everyone's thoughts and raised her hand to block everyone's salute. The exemption in the fields is not acceptable to them. Lu Kong and Old Cheng have their own advantages, and they have their own merits. They follow the rules of worship and say, see your highness the crown prince. Today is the flower festival. It was said by Zhiyue that the Empress Dowager is looking at talented women from prestigious families, while the older brother is now here. It's hard to imagine that he's trying to escape. The Xia dynasty had an open literary style, and throughout history, there was no emphasis on men. Women and hairpins had to start a family. It is common for men to get married in their 30s, while women in their 20s are unmarried and even remarried. The Crown Prince is 18 this year. As the Empress of the Marquis's mansion, he began to see his daughter-in-law at the age of 10. Her original words were, "In the future, the Crown Princess of Cheer should not only have a beautiful appearance, but also a gentle personality. She must be a talented woman, with a large pattern and a sense of measurement. From her perspective, there's no need to be too picky about my brother and daughter-in-law. With such a perfect person, his daughter-in-law just needs to like it." Xia Yunjin's thoughts flew to the sky, and the Crown Prince of Zhilan Yushu had already arrived in front of her. He rudely tapped her head with a fan and said, "What is your sister thinking? Are you hungry?" Covering his head, he looked up and chuckled, "Hungry? I just didn't expect that today would be the least leisurely day for the Crown Prince to bring food over. He was supposed to be extremely busy today. There was a mother in the palace waiting to see him, and his classmates' Crown Prince invited him to visit the lake. The girls were eager to see him. With him in the lake, everyone is bound to have a lot of fun. While having lunch, I heard a servant report that my younger sister was busy at the farm today and had to bring lunch from the palace. I found an opportunity to go to the imperial kitchen to pick up the lunch." Looking at the little girl's face covered in sweat, she took out a pure white handkerchief embroidered with a little mouse from her wide sleeve and wiped her sweat. "Look at you, you're so busy that you don't even care about your image," she said, seeing Mickey Mouse. Xia Yunjin laughed unkindly and took the handkerchief to wipe it herself. She was such a big person, and in front of so many people, she was too embarrassed to ask the esteemed Crown Prince to wipe her sweat. "Brother still likes to carry this handkerchief with him. Rub it lightly on his forehead, fold it up and stuff it into his wide belt. After washing it, return it to him." Xia Yunqi smiled and nodded, unfolding the fan in his hand to fan her away. He looked at Dean Lu and said, "Call everyone to the attic and prepare for dinner." Watching the scene of siblings warming hands and feet by his side, Lu Kong was deeply moved for a moment. No matter how many siblings there were, they were not as affectionate as relatives. The current emperor ascended the throne, although he had 2 brothers, none of whom had real power. One wandered around the world and the other became a monk. Mr. Cheng touched his brother with his hand, implying that His Highness was talking to him. Lu Kong came to his senses and clasped his fists, "It's His Highness." Turning to the edge of the paddy field, he instructed everyone put all the seedlings in their hands into the water, and make sure all the roots are submerged in the water. First, go up to the attic to cook and then work. If it's a water plant, it shouldn't be wrong to put it in the water. Upon hearing this, everyone in the field excitedly put the seedlings into the water, and there was a feast in the imperial kitchen to eat. The princess sometimes works with them in the fields at the Academy of Agricultural Sciences, so busy that she forgets to sleep and eat. The palace also sends food out, and they have enjoyed it together several times. Following the princess, as commoners, how could he also have access to the food in the palace? That is the imperial dining room exclusively for the emperor and the empress to eat. Xia Yunjin has a dedicated resting room. Before eating, she changes off her waterproof pants and straps, which helps her clean her face before coming out. Looking at the Crown Prince sitting at the table reading, he let out a soft sigh and said, "Brother hasn't left yet." Xia Yunqi closed his book and stood up, tapping the little girl's head lightly. "How long have I only been here? I just wish I could leave so much. No, I hope my brother can accompany me for a while longer." He sat down and personally arranged a set of dishes for him. The bowl was taken before it was put down. "Gina, don't bother, I have already eaten it." "Okay, then I don't care about you." She had very little breakfast in a hurry this morning, and after working so hard for so long, she was indeed a bit hungry. Sitting down, without waiting for the good soup to come over, I would already use my chopsticks to pick up the dishes. Xia Yunqi has always enjoyed eating slowly and delicately, even if he is hungry, he can still be considered elegant. Seeing his sister eating like a little squirrel, Xia Yinqi's heart is about to melt. Unfortunately, he was the crown prince. His father taught him from a young age that he should not be too pleased or angry, but in front of his sister, he didn't want to be so tired. With a smile, she picked up chopsticks and served her groceries. Gina looks at the fields. After finishing her meal, she will be busy for a while before finishing work. Where are you going to play this afternoon? After gnawing on a piece of pork ribs, he put the bones into a plate and said, when I went out of the city in the morning, I met my cousins. They had already gone out to play and couldn't go out of the palace at night. I planned to go back to the Marquis's mansion and go out for a stroll in the evening. She still likes to join in the fun. She can't catch up during the day, and the night market at night is not as lively. I knew this girl wouldn't miss it, so I gave her another piece of pork ribs and said, okay, I'll go back to the palace and tell my mother. After dinner, the crown prince left. Xia Yunjin was too lazy to put on waterproof pants with straps and went directly to watch everyone plant rice seedlings, finishing the final work. Academician Lu and Mr. Cheng have already picked a box of strawberries in the pavilion, enjoying themselves while watching everyone's work and eating the fruits after dinner. Seeing the girl come over, he stood up and sat upright. Old man Cheng handed over a box of strawberries and said, "Girl, this thing is delicious. Yesterday, my mother-in-law ate such a box in one go." Excellent took the strawberry, glanced at him, and placed it in front of the princess. Strawberries are a bit cold, Uncle Cheng suggested to Aunt to eat less at once. He raised his hand and signaled to Excellent not to use them. Old man Cheng snorted, that woman doesn't have any control over what she eats, she doesn't listen. Having been at the Academy of Agricultural Sciences for so long, although I haven't seen my aunt in person, I have heard Ching Shu complain. She is a grand princess, and even an unmarried girl is not good at commenting on her husband and wife. At most, she follows his words of care and concern. Get up and take the two maids to Strawberry Hill to pick some strawberries. Everyone is busy and rewarded. The two girls came over with a basket in their hands, and the people in the field also cleaned up the mud on their hands and left the paddy field. Waiting for someone to approach, today is the holiday, everyone has worked hard. These strawberries have been shared with everyone and taken away. Thank you, princess. The young people were deeply moved and clasped their fists in gratitude. They knew how rare these red fruits were for the princess throughout the winter, afraid of freezing, so they built a greenhouse. Fires were set on all sides to keep the shed warm, and now the weather has warmed up before it can be withdrawn. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Attracting Bees and Butterflies. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Attracting Bees and Butterflies. Return to the lounge, change back into the clothes you wore when you left, and say, go back to the Marquis's mansion. Yes. Two people each carried a basket of strawberries and went out. Excellent even hummed a little tune, and finally they could go play. The carriage leisurely arrived at the Marquis's mansion, almost ready for dinner. The guard at the door saw the carriage of the sixth princess and immediately went in to report to one person. Xia Yunjin jumped out of the car and arrived at the front yard with two girls who were familiar with the road. Miss Jean has arrived, we are preparing to have dinner together. Before a person arrives, the sound arrives first. The old Marquis, with grey hair and a strong and sturdy body, walked in with great strides. Marquis, hello. Bend your knees at the same time as your strengths and excellence. Grandfather, cousin, haven't they come back yet? She hugged his arm affectionately. The whole mansion is the most comfortable place for her to stay, and she is very easy going here. Shen Yicheng took her out and headed towards the elegant hall. Junior is reading at home, and everything else is still going crazy outside, he said. Third cousin is really suffocating, it's a pity for his good skin. Yiting is right in front, and Jin Ji has been seen supporting his grandmother and releasing her arm to welcome her. Grandmother, the old lady with graying hair on her temples looked up, and the girl approaching in front was Princess 6, with a smile on her face. Why are you here, this girl? You haven't gone out to play with your cousins. Sixth Princess, hello. A group of maids behind them bowed their knees and saluted. Free of charge. I came to my grandmother's side and said, I didn't go to the farm today because I had something to do. I met my cousins on the street. Okay, let's have a livelier evening. When Yushu and Yuran come back, we'll go out and play together. We'll stay at the Marquis's mansion tonight. As he spoke, he had already reached the seating area. Separate seats for men and women, separated by a large screen in the middle of the elegant hall. Xia Yunjin has a noble status and sitting next to the old lady is not at all out of place. She stepped forward and laid dishes for her. Stewed pork ball and brown sauce in front of her was very attractive. She could not move her eyes. The old lady doted on her and picked up a chopstick for her. You don't have to wait for your aunt and the others. If you're hungry, eat first, she said. The round meatballs were in the bowl, but she still held back her chopsticks and said, wait a little longer. As the words fell, there were footsteps outside the door. The three uncles came in, chatting and laughing, and saw the people sitting next to the old lady. Everyone tidied up their clothes and bowed their knees according to the rules, saying, Hello, Princess 6. Free of charge. Xia Yunjin stood up and gave a brief salute to the younger generation. Greetings to all uncles. Changfang Jingxiu likes Xiao Lu the most, with a smile on her face that doesn't diminish. Okay, it's been a long time since we last saw Gina. Your big aunt, you're not thinking it right, she said. Come and sit next to her, pulling her closer. Your second cousin. The uncle and aunt around you are very talkative, and you never have a chance to interject. When you talk about the second cousin picking her husband, she just needs to smile and handle it. My second aunt, Mu Yunru, is a very gentle person. When she comes to sit down, she only listens to what people say. Aunt Ma Xiaoqiao, with a round appearance and a hint of shrewdness between her eyebrows, looked at Princess Lu with a smile as she had seen her grow up since childhood. The girl was already very hungry, and the eldest daughter-in-law was really not sensible. The old lady coughed and said, We'll start the banquet as soon as we're all here, don't worry about the men. Pick up the chopsticks and start eating. The eldest daughter-in-law stood up and silently picked up her chopsticks. Next door at the banquet, Zheng Yeqing sat for half a day without seeing his three sons and Junior coming over for dinner. He waved and came over to take care of the butler, saying, Mr. Deng, go see if the three gentlemen are still coming back for dinner, and what Junior is doing. It's been a long time without anyone around, and I have to wait for them as an old man. What a shame. Yes, Marquis. The butler ordered to exit the door. Wait a minute, whether you like to eat or not, the old man picked up his chopsticks and ate the meat in large gulps. After finishing dinner and drinking half a cup of tea in the living room, the servant finally returned and reported, Grandpa is eating wine at the Imperial Palace, second Grandpa is accompanying guests on a business trip to the lake, third Grandpa is in the military camp, and third young master has gone out at noon. The old man put down his teacup and said, Don't worry. Yes, the butler retreated to the side and waited for dispatch. The flower hall, the old lady has sent someone to invite a few young ladies back, and they will return home at sunset. This is a tradition, let alone a girl. Chatting happily with my aunt, the sound of noise outside the door came from outside. Fourth sister is really stupid. That duck knows how to swim and even bet with the stupid girl next door. It's really idle and flustered. Shen Yuran walked back into the door, turned around, and saw Princess 6 sitting next to her mother. She tidied up her clothes, held her fists in a proper manner, and said, Princess 6, be safe. Outside the door, Shen Yushu, with his head drooping, heard the sixth princess and his whole body perked up. He stepped over the threshold with a rosy smile on his face and said, sixth princess, be safe. Shen Yusin followed with the maids. Xia Yunjin stood up and lightly raised her hand, no gift. Yunjin, let's go see the flower god together tonight. Shen Yushu happily took his good sister's hand. You girl, you only see the princess, but not your grandmother and mother. The old lady sitting on the head spoke up, and Yushu's temperament jumped out of control. In another year, she will reach her hairpin, so choosing her husband's family is not very suitable. Nodding to her secretly, he pushed her over to greet the elders. Shen Yusin came over and pulled his sister Shen Yushu, with a proper hand to the left and a standard knee bend. Grandma, mother, be safe, she said, this is just right. Jing Jingqiu and Mu Yunru nodded when they saw the person above them and stood up to pick up their daughter. I always know I'm crazy outside. Look at you, your hairstyle is all messed up. Mu Yunru tenderly straightened the hairpin on her right side and pulled her over to sit, smoothing her hair at the back. I used to tidy up with my second aunt and said, cousin bet with Miss Yun next door again today. Speaking of this, Shen Yuran chuckled and said, Xiao Lu, you don't know, she's so stupid. That duck is already good at water. What's wrong with gambling? If you bet on this, you'll get a big advantage for nothing. Auntie, Xiao Wu knows how to make fun of me. The little girl pouted and complained about her unhappiness today. The two people on the united front exploded upon hearing this, and Jing Jingqiu went over to slap his son on the head. Don't mock your sister, there are no rules at all about how big you are, he said. The boy's mouth curled. You are the mother, and you are the final say. Sitting on the chair, pick up the teacup and take a big sip of tea. After finishing their hair, the two of them bit their ears and talked about interesting things about their trip to Taoshan today. During the season of admiring flowers, it is impossible to miss out on the elegant young talents. Today, they met Yang Xuewu, the first talented woman in the capital. She danced gracefully in a pink dress in the peach orchard, attracting many butterflies. That scene is simply captivating. Unfortunately, he was spoiled by the stubborn seventh prince. He didn't know where to attract the wasps, and the group of them ran away. He also didn't know if the talented woman had been stung. Dare to be angry or not speak up, what do you compare to a child? They went down the mountain and then to Donghu, where they met the chubby girl from their neighbor Yunmeng. When they were swimming together, they encountered a group of little ducks. However, she had limited knowledge and was fooled by that girl, gambling with her that the little duck would drown in the water. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. 12 Flower Gods. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 12 Flower Gods. The two of them happily covered each other's mouths and chuckled in unison. As night fell, the servant outside came in and said, Madam, the third young master is here. As the words fell, a gentle and elegant young man dressed in white came in. Shen Yujun brushed her sleeves and clasped her fists, bowing in turn, Princessin, Grandmotherin, two aunts, and Motherin. The old lady looked at the young man in front of her with a kind smile and said, Come and sit down. I heard that you went out to poetry with your classmates at noon. Yes, I had originally planned to write the article arranged by my master yesterday, but today I was summoned to write poetry with several classmates. Yumian was full of regret, and tonight I had to endure it again. Shen Yushu, who was sitting on the rocking chair, whispered, Third brother, we're going to end our autumn trial this year. Don't let those who have been abused by black-faced vermilion. Black-faced Jew was retired from the official career of the Crown Prince and Grand Tutor. He opened a school in his spare time, but not everyone could enter. It is said that he had to pass 3 tests to become his student seriously. Sangongzi is full of knowledge and writes well. He was only admitted as a student a year ago. Don't say that, third cousin is like the top scorer in the storybook. He will definitely excel in high school this year. The little girl loves reading picture books the most. When it comes to the top scorer, she chuckles heartily. There is too much noise here, and Shen Yujun, who has always been serious, doesn't know what to do. Shen Yuan noticed the discomfort of his third brother and hugged him on the shoulder. Third brother, don't pay attention to them. The little girl is at the age of Huichuan, and I don't know what to think day by day. With these words, the two of them stood up angrily and said, "Can you speak or keep your mouth shut? My fifth cousin owes me a beating." His wrist twisted and creaked. Someone quickly hid behind third brother when they saw something was wrong. I can't say it yet. Shen Yujun standing in front was at a loss. As a scholar who values rules the most, he was facing a princess. Hiding left and right like a cat, Shen Yushu's fists all hit Shen Yujun. Xia Yunjin has learned how to fight and kick. He pulled out the person and punched him with his fists. A few children's farce, adults have become accustomed to it and let it go. The two of them chased after each other and ran all over the room. The old lady couldn't bear to watch any more and let go of the teacup. "Everyone, go out, Yushu, take Xiao Lu to the street to take a look. Yu Ran will protect her sister. Out of sight and out of mind, it's good to shoot them all out." "Okay," Shen Yushu agreed quickly and followed fifth brother out. Xia Yunjin pursued her with excellence and strengths. The three mothers in the room sat steadily like mountains, smiling as they watched the children go out. Shen Yujun saluted the elders again and said, "Grandmother, I should go and study. Let's go. It's better for Juner to be calm and peaceful." Zheng Jingqiu also retired with his daughter Shen Yusin. When it came time for the eldest girl to pick her husband, it was always good for her reputation to go out less. Shen Yushu and Xia Yunjin, who left the door, were wild horses that had run free. They held hands and ran towards Fairy Lake. Today, there is a beauty pageant organized by wealthy merchants for the 12 flower gods. Whether it's a noblewoman or a flower prostitute, as long as they dress up as representative of flowers, perform on stage, and finally everyone votes with roses. The 12 types of flowers are performed on stage, and the one with the highest vote is the flower god. 12 flowers representing the month include plum, peach, peony, orchid, peony, pomegranate, osmanthus, narcissus, hibiscus, lotus, camellia, and begonia. Every year during the flower festival, women put in a lot of effort on their clothes, and different flowers have their own personalities. For example, in January, plum blossoms bloom in the snow, exuding a strong and proud spirit. In March, peach blossoms bloom with buds, like a gentle red glow. In April, only peonies have the true national color, and the blooming season moves the capital. The lake is overcrowded, and the 12 flower beds in the center of the lake are decorated with representative artificial flowers. For the convenience of people's viewing, there are no boats allowed in the lake now, and stands have been set up by various households along the lake. The second uncle of the tycoon was already waiting on the stands, and even if he looked left and right, he couldn't see anyone from his own family. He had to command the servant to guard and go down to the sea of people to catch people. "Miss, please be slow. It's still early and you'll always arrive." The excellent advantages behind her two sisters could not catch up with her skirt. Shen Yuan has practiced some martial arts, and it's not a problem to keep up with the two maids, causing trouble. However, his grandmother instructed him to keep a close eye on his sister, so he needs to keep an eye on her. When they reached the sea of people, the two of them looked at each other. How could they get there? But in the past, it's only about looking at people's heads outside. Here, Yushu, Xiaolu on the other side of the stands, someone waved their hand towards this side. "Xiaolu, it's my father," Shen Yushu responded with a joyful wave of his hand. "Well, I saw it. Worried about how to get there." Shen Yuan took away the jade pendant and money bag from her waist, and stood in front of the two with a macho attitude. "I'll lead the way ahead, you two little girls, follow me," she said. "My fifth cousin has achieved great success." The two cleverly hid behind him, protecting Xia Yunjin on both sides of excellence and excellence, afraid of being bumped into. The small train was heading towards Uncle Air, struggling for half a day before finally passing through the crowd. There were fewer people approaching the stands, and as they stepped onto the platform, a few people took a soft breath. "Second uncle," sweetly shouted the handsome and wealthy man in front of him. Shen Chongshan touched her head and said, "I haven't seen you for a few days." Xiao Lu has turned black again. Xia Yunjin. "Father, you really can't praise people." Shen Yushu pulled the good sisters and chose the best position like a mountain lord. What can a father do? Get used to it. On the lake, drums and gongs were played, and a man with a red rose in his mouth was rowing a small boat on the lake. Good evening everyone. Spring is the season of blooming flowers, and today is the time for the gathering of flower gods. The rules for tonight remain the same as in previous years. The 12 stages take turns competing. If the performers' performances are not good, everyone can call a halt in advance and the next performance will take place. Without further ado, let's invite the flower queen from Hongchun courtyard to bring the opening. Then the boat rowed away, and on the platform of the begonia tree, lanterns around the stage were lit, illuminating the entire dark stage. Grasping the melon seeds from the plate, my fourth cousin and I stared at the stage without blinking. There's no way, the life of ancient people was too boring. The flower festival was considered the biggest event of the Xia dynasty, and it's just one opportunity to have fun every year. On the stage, petals fluttered, and a pink gauze hung from the air. A graceful girl with dark red shoulder sleeves fluttering in the wind, her head adorned with begonia flowers, slid down from above with a veil. Pop 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 pop. The applause from the shore kept going, and the rare flower queen was hard to buy a smile with a lot of money. Today, performing for them, I saw that they were indeed immortals descending to earth. The sound of the qin was melodious, followed by the sound of the shao, and the people on stage danced with the wind. The backstage rang out, and dancers dressed in pink joined on both sides of the stage, dancing with the leading flower leader ahead. Good, 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 the people by the lake cheered one after another. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Dongshi Imitation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Dongshi Imitation. With the exquisite and stunning opening of the Huakue, there was a comparison in the following performances, and several noble women were all knocked off the stage. Among them, there is also Yun Meng, the daughter of a Dali temple official who lives next door to the Shen family and always conflicts with her fourth cousin. I saw her wearing a pink dress, with peach blossom petals decorating the corners of her eyes, crying and holding her pipa as she stepped down from the stage. Shen Yushu laughed quickly and said, "Goose, goose, 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 goose. What do you think of her? She still wants to compete with the peach blossom fairy." Not only did she laugh the loudest, but also the noblewomen in the neighboring stands. Shen Chongshan gave his daughter a slap in the head and said, "Without any image, she can at least play a pipa. You're useless, who are you laughing at?" My biological father dealt a greater blow, and my mouth immediately closed, leaving me with no mood for laughter. "It's okay, we ate better than her," she comforted and patted her. Shen Yuran laughed heartily beside him. "Ha ha ha, what Xiao Lu said is sincere. I look forward to being a good sisters. You might as well not persuade me." Next is the lotus stage, where a young girl wearing a lotus plug and white clothes gradually changing into pink takes up the stage holding a guqin. Without any other petal accessories, slender fingers plucked the strings of the piano, playing with high mountains and flowing water. There are many high-ranking officials nearby who enjoy the beautiful piano music with their eyes closed, like Uncle Air. I didn't know before that the daughter of the imperial censor, Shangguan Weiyu, was skilled at playing the piano. "Xiao Lu, let's choose her as the Lotus Fairy." The girl next to Xia Yunjin was so engrossed in listening. After the chaos of the crowd, it's not bad to come to such a audio-visual feast to wash your ears. She nodded in agreement and said, vote for her." At the end of the song, the people on the shore couldn't come to their senses for a long time. Someone took the lead in applauding, followed by a chorus of cheers. Beauty pageants require performing talents, which is also an alternative way of showcasing oneself. Unfortunately, my second cousin did not participate, otherwise her backhand playing of the pipa would definitely dominate the crowd. It was the turn of the pure white camellia stage, and a person dressed in white stepped onto the stage. The shore caused a sensation, and the whistles became louder and louder one by one. Yang Xuewu, the most talented woman in Beijing, appears. Without any decoration on his head, he was dressed in white clothes with water sleeves tied around his waist. His delicate little face was not adorned with makeup, and his semi-loose hair hung over his chest. He bowed to the lake with a bent knee. The act of bowing has brought elegance to the extreme, arousing excitement among the young masters on the shore. Watching talented women dancing in Taoyuan during the day turned out to be preparation for the evening. With the sound of shirku, the servants dressed in scholar-like clothes on both sides rolled their blank canvases towards the center of the stage. The girls' lightweight water sleeves were swung to both sides, with black ink dipping into the white sleeves. Her agile dance steps followed the rhythm of the music, and the water sleeves were thrown onto the canvas. Xia Yunjin couldn't help but sigh. Isn't this the dance painting performed by the female lead in the TV drama Myth? If I hadn't known her since childhood, would have thought she had traveled through time. A talented woman is indeed a talented woman, and this can be thoroughly studied by her. After finishing the dance, the servant lifted the canvas on the ground and presented a picture of green mountains and clear waters in front of everyone. While a crowd on the shore exclaimed in surprise, "Isn't this the scenery of Taoshan?" Right, the number one talented woman in the capital is indeed not built. Snow dancing girls are the most beautiful. Fairy. On the top floor of the drunken immortal tower, two elegant young men looked at the stunning beauty in the middle of the lake. Xia Jingzhou, holding a folding fan in his hand, joked, "Nan Feng, your green plums have made a name for themselves. The most talented woman in the capital is worthy of you." Nan Feng held the sword tightly in his hand, with a hint of displeasure on his face. Feeling that the people around him were in a bad mood, Xia Jingzhou quickly moved several tens of feet away. He knew his friend didn't like Yang Xuewu, it was just a joke. He doesn't like what his brother doesn't like, and he doesn't like it either. By the lakeside, everyone was crazy about Yang Xuewu. The two little girls in the Shen family stand were bored, pounding their heads in anticipation of her leaving the stage earlier. After the performance, why are they still standing on top? Xia Yunjin's head was facing the Yang family grandstand 50 meters away, and the fourth Princess Xia Yunxi and second Prince Xia Yunha sitting on top straightened their backs and were proud of Yan. "TSK, your Yang family has made a name for themselves and will do all these fancy things." Several outstanding flower gods were invited onto the stage, and the flower boat approached the shore. In front of each flower god, a basket with a name was placed, and 4 or 5 boatmen on the boat lowered the deck. The butler standing on the peony boat raised his voice and said, "All the flower gods have finished their performances. It's time for everyone to pick up the roses in their hands and throw them towards their beloved goddess. There are too many people, and queuing up one by one is too slow to pitch. The stands are also prestigious, so just give the flowers to the maid and the girl who the host likes. Remember, Huakue and Shengguan Weiyu." Shen Yushu felt that he was a bit unreliable, afraid that he would vote for his own goddess. "Forget it, I'll vote for it myself. Take the rose, pull up Xia Yunjin, and go queue up." With a warning, look at Shen Yiran. Do you dare not keep up? If you dare not vote for our goddess, you are done. Shen Yiran patted off the melon seed shell in her hand and helplessly followed with the flower. Both the advantages and excellence are accompanied by flowers behind the princess, who is the daughter of the Jade Emperor. Why should we join in the fun? Xia Yunjin took out Yunja from her sleeve and put it on. She is a princess, and if someone with intentions sees her in public, she will be ruined by an assassination attempt. The queue was too long, and she hugged the waist of her fourth cousin standing in front, with her head banged on her shoulder and her eyelids drooping incessantly. Step by step, I moved to the lake and finally got on the deck. Shen Yushu raised his shoulder slightly and reminded, Xiao Lu has boarded the ship. Be alert and be careful not to fall off. The two teenagers on the drunken immortal tower also saw the two girls growing together on the deck. Xia Jingzhou recognized the fourth miss of the Duke's mansion at a glance, and the boneless one behind him must be Xiao Lu. The fan popped open and chuckled, this little six gods are out of nowhere. They are all focused on the farm, and I didn't expect to follow the young ladies of the Duke's mansion around. Nanfeng looked down with gentle eyes, afraid that one of her feet might slip and fall into the water. The children of the royal family, what he admires the most is the sixth princess. If he says anything that goes against morality, the crown prince is a bit unlucky. The little girl became famous at a young age, ensuring that the people had enough to eat. The affairs of the people were of great importance, and every new variety developed benefited the people. Xia Yunjin, who had boarded the ship, perked up her spirits and followed her cousin step by step until she came to the huakue and put down the flower in her hand. Ji Shu bowed to the girl wearing a mask in front of her and said, "Thank you very much. The next stop on the lotus boat is to throw in the official light rain." Shen Yushu carefully pulled her over the wooden board between the two ships and said, "Xiao Lu, take a good look before stepping on it." I walked through the wooden board and boarded the flower boat. Sister Weiyu is so beautiful today, Shen Yushu couldn't help but praise her as she dropped a rose. I have seen many banquets of all sizes before. Shangguan Weiyu smiled slightly and said, "Thank you very much, Yushu." Looking at the girl behind her, who was wearing clouds but had an extraordinary demeanor, her bright eyes were very familiar. In retrospect, she instantly knew who she was and bowed deeply. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Behind the Bitterness. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Behind the Bitterness. Xia Yunjin put down the rose and said, "The piano of the light rain has improved again. Thank you very much." Six girls praised me. She quickly changed her tone. She went to the palace to do accompanying reading for her at a young age, and had not seen her since leaving the palace at the age of 8, so she almost didn't recognize her. Shen Yuran had no human rights to vote with him. If it weren't for the princess, he wouldn't have voted for Shangguan Weiyu. This little girl looked as gentle as the second sister and had a strange temper as the fourth sister. Of course, the Yang family's investment is in Yang Xuewu, and there is no need to bribe people to invest. The mountain tea and flower gods sit firmly at the forefront. As Yang Xuewu's basket was filled with more and more flowers, Shen Yushu anxiously pulled Xia Yunjin and said, "Xiao Lu, do you think we should buy tickets to vote for Weiyu? Now that the basket is half full, the competition with the stage is only a dozen or so bouquets of flowers. As long as the rain wins steadily, that's all. Don't waste it, no matter how noble the camellia is, it's not as good as the peony. No matter how popular she is, she can't be the leader." The national flower of the Xia dynasty was peony, and the 12 flower gods have always ranked first among peonies. Her intention was just to show off and compete with the national flower for beauty. Shen Yushu suddenly realized, yes, then I can rest assured. On the stage of watching peonies, the most voted performer was Yu Xiaoyu, the first qin player from the Red Chamber, who was on par with Yang Xuewu, a talented woman in the capital. The woman has a round oval face, with a broken ruby falling from her forehead. She has thin willow eyebrows and a cherry mouth, and her braids are adorned with peony petals. Wearing a pink rose-red waist-tied lotus leaf skirt, the harp she just played was more exquisite than Shangguan Weiyu's. The girl with fewer flowers took the initiative to step down, and in the end, the 12 flower gods were chosen. Yu Xiaoyu, Yang Xuewu, Ji Shu, Shangguan Weiyu, Xiao Muxin, Yi Chutong, Fu Mengqi, Wu Shui, Yun Ran, Song Nuren, Zhou Yiqiao, and Mu Ruoyin. Except for a qin player and a flower queen, most of the flower gods are noble women. After watching the excitement, the people on the shore dispersed, and Shen Chongshan also took his family back to the mansion. Shen Yushu reluctantly tugged at his own father, at least not allowing him to go shopping. "Anna, it's too late now. How about we go shopping again tomorrow?" Xia Yunjin pulled her and advised her with kind words. Shen Chongshan glared at her and said, "I'm not as steady as Xiao Lu yet. You're a big sister." "What, Xiao Lu is only 8 months younger than me," she said, almost vomiting. "Even 8 months old, if we argue again, we'll marry you off first." Shen Zhongshan issued an ultimatum and then retorted, taking off his shoes and slapping this disobedient girl. Shen Yuran had already gotten used to it and bid farewell to San Bo with a clasped fist. Xia Yunjin, who was beside her, quickly grabbed her fourth cousin and said goodbye. "Don't be angry. I brought some strawberries and will go to the Jinxiu Pavilion tomorrow to cook delicious food for you, okay?" The little girl dug up her mouth and smoothed it out, nodding with a smile, "Okay." Jinxiu Pavilion is a joint venture between the two of them, operating in a different way from other restaurants. Its main products include hot pot, cold drinks, fruits, and specialty pastries. The Shen family's industry has an Empress behind it, who dares to come and cause trouble. The small shop is full every day in winter, cold drinks sell well in summer, and fresh fruits are sold all year round. The royal farm, where fruits are produced, is a greenhouse built by Xia Yunjin. The main focus is on a noble character, who dares to step into the threshold without any strength. The threshold cannot stop high-ranking officials and dignitaries. At the feet of the emperor in the capital, who doesn't sit in the mountains of gold and silver, the whole mansion has a room specially prepared for Xia Yunjin, but every time she visits, she sleeps with her fourth cousin, and they can chat until dawn. "I can't do it today." Xia Yunjin was busy at the farm during the day and was a bit tired. She fell asleep with her head on the pillow. Shen Yushu still wanted to chat with her about interesting things about Taoshan. When she fell asleep, he stopped disturbing her and closed his eyes to quietly count the sheep. Yang mansion on the attic in the backyard, Yang Xuewu combed her hair in the mirror. A light purple figure came over from inside the mirror and said, "Has the fourth princess fallen asleep?" The maid bent her knees with ointment and said, "Miss Hui, go to sleep." Gently gripping the comb in her hand, there was no expression on her face. Every time Xia Yunxi went to the mansion, she always looked aloof. In terms of character, she is not as gentle as Princess 5, and in terms of talent, she is not as capable as Princess 6. She can only play a broken pipa with one hand. I really don't know what she is noble about. Wrap up your sleeves, there are 5 or 6 red and swollen big bags on your slender arms. Apply medicine, he said. Jiao squatted down and twisted open the porcelain bottle, picked up a little green ointment with a bamboo slice, and gently applied it to the swollen area. The girl is in so much pain, her eyes are red. The girl shouldn't have been running for any flower god. It hurts even to see a servant, she said. Damn the 7th prince, if you don't take a good look, you can just poke explosives. What kind of hornet can you poke? Don't tell your father. Yang Xuewu bit her lip and warned her in pain. Yes. She had to comply with the girl's orders. She, Yang Xuewu, is the most talented woman in the capital, and the flower goddess must be in the limelight. Looking at the peony costumes on the shelf, she feels a bit regretful. If it weren't for being stung by a wasp, she would have been the head of the 12 flower gods tonight. The next morning, at the Marquis's mansion, they had a breakfast with both advantages and excellence. One person carried a basket of strawberries and followed Xia Yunjin and Shen Yushu. The door and the elder uncle of the previous court are separated, heading towards Jinxiu Pavilion. On the carriage, Shen Yushu leaned boneless against Xia Yunjin and said, "Xiao Lu, what are you doing with so many strawberries?" She has almost fermented milk in the kitchen, and she wants to make yogurt cakes. She has seen videos of making chiffon cakes online before, and she has also bought an oven to make them herself, and she hasn't had a problem yet. Cows are a rare commodity here. She asked her father to help search for them. It was said that he had sent people to search for both the Zhou and Wu kingdoms but couldn't find them. Instead, he crossed the desert and found cows that could produce milk in an unknown small country. Princess Baobao's cows are kept at the royal racecourse by dedicated personnel. Pat her head and say, "Keep it a secret." "Che, it's like this every time." After a cup of tea, I arrived at the attic and entered the interior. The store was completely designed in the style of Xia Yunjin, with a high counter style like a milk tea shop on the left and a small private room and round table on the right. The second floor is an elegant room, and dining requires reservations, making it even more difficult to schedule on the balcony. This is a private kitchen with visible deliciousness, where you can watch the chef cook while eating. It's morning and there aren't many people in the store yet. Xiao Shi, who makes juice, is sitting on a high stool dozing off. Shen Yushu couldn't help but go over and let out a loud shout, which frightened him. He quickly turned around to pay his respects and said, "See Princess, Miss Shen. Free of charge, let's continue sleeping." She grabbed Yushu and headed straight to the backyard. She had to make a cake today, which was a bit time-consuming. In order not to delay doing business, the kitchen is separated from her small workshop. In the backyard, there is a red mud oven and an egg beater made with bamboo tubes, which were planned for fermenting milk last month. Passing by the small kitchen, dozens of chefs and pastry chefs turned around, with the man clasping his fists and the woman bending her knees. "See the princess. Free of charge." He walked into the backyard without lifting his head. The three pastry makers looked at each other and knew that the princess was going to do something new again. They put on their aprons and followed them out, so they could give each other a try. End of this chapter.